Today, we're going to talk about everything you need to know about the New York City Marathon so that you will have the best marathon experience ever. Hey runners, my name is Letty and I am the host of the weekly marathon running podcast. Feel free to check that out. But today we're going to talk about the race that's coming up. It's going to happen on November 3rd and this race is a challenging course and there's so much to it. So let's hop right into that. To help you navigate through this video, I invite you to check out the description of it and go to the timestamps of the topics that interest you most. So the New York City Marathon happened for the first time in 1970. Back then, the sign-up fee was only $1. There was 127 participants and only 55 finishers. Now, the course was a lot different. They used to run laps around Central Park, which sounds amazing for us that don't live there, but if you live there, you know it's not that big, and maybe it's a lot of laps. But the new course came in 1976, and it has been the course since that takes you through all 5 boroughs of New York, starting in Staten Island and ending in Central Park, Manhattan, and we'll talk more about the course later towards the end of the video. Fast forward to 2024, the number of participants has grown. I think they are expecting about 55,000 runners for this race, which will make it the largest marathon in the world. Obviously with that, there's a safety concern, but rest assured that the New York Roadrunners, the organizers of this event, are working hand in hand with the NYPD, city and state. They have mobilized heavy weapon teams, emergency service units, a critical response command, a strategic response group, counterterrorism officers with radiation devices, canines, etc., you name it. It seems like the safety precautions are amazing. Now, when it comes to the elite field of this New York City Marathon, it's pretty amazing. There are going to be so many names that you'll recognize from the Olympic Marathon. You'll, from the USA, see Connor Mance, Clayton Young, and Dakota Lindworm. And you'll also see CJ Albertson, who recently placed first for American men in the Chicago Marathon. And then you'll also see previous winners such as Evan Chebet. You'll see the winner of the Olympic Marathon, Tamarat Tola. You'll see the number 1 guy from Tanzania, Gabriel Guillet. You'll see Bashir Abdi from Belgium. And for the women other than Dakota Lindworm, who I already mentioned, you'll see Edna Kibnagat, Sheila Kipkuri, Helen Obiri, Des Linden, Jessica McCain, Jenny Simpson, and many, many more. So it's going to be a super exciting race to spectate if you find yourself in New York accompanying one of your loved ones. You'll also be able to find a list of celebrities on the website. I personally am horrible at recognizing celebrities, but I'm going to put that on here for you so you can see who is running it. I also always think it's interesting to look at the amount of prize money that is given out for races. And for the New York City Marathon, there are tons of categories that makes prize money. For the first winner, in either men or women, that person makes $100,000. Second place makes $60,000. And third place makes $40,000. For the wheelchairs, and in my opinion, a little bit unfairly, the first person only makes $35,000. Second person, $25,000, and third person makes $15,000. There's also prize money in this race for New York City Roadrunner divisions and teams, and also for masters, although not a lot. At least they're doing that too. All right, so let's move on and talk about the events surrounding the New York City Marathon. Obviously, you're going to have the Expo. The Expo, just like every year, takes place at the Jacob K. Javits Center, which is located southeast of Central Park. Expo hours will be 10 to 8 on Thursday, Friday, and 9 to 5 on Saturday. But that's not the only event organized by the New York Roadrunners for the New York City Marathon. They actually start early. They start with October 27th, so that's a whole week prior to the marathon where they have the Kids Run. Kids Run is actually called the New York Roadrunners Kids Kickoff, and there's more information available on the website. Then on Wednesday, October 30th, is the Blue Line painting ceremony at 9 a.m. The blue line, if you're not familiar with it, is the painted line that you'll see on the race course, which has all the tangents. So as a runner, if you follow the blue line, you're as close to 26.2 miles when you run that marathon, rather than if you don't take the tangents, your marathon sometimes will say up to 27 miles because you're running extra. So that's the ceremony taking place on Wednesday, kind of interesting. And on Thursday at 11:15 a.m., they have the TCS Run with the Champions event. And then on Friday, November 1st, which happens to be my birthday, at 3:45 p.m. is the opening ceremony, which I heard is amazing to watch because you have people parading, basically wearing countries' attires representing all the countries that participate in the marathon. So that sounds really great. That same day in the evening is the Night of Champion event, which is kind of like a gala-style event where you have to buy tickets for. You can check that out on the website as well. On Saturday, November 2nd at 8:30 a.m. is the Abbott Dash to the Finish Line 5K, which is also a championship. You had to have signed up for that event prior, but you can also spectate and watch it. I did that last year and it was pretty beautiful. So those are all the official events organized by the New York City Roadrunners. Then there's also the unofficial events, which you can find on Eventbrite. Eventbrite is a website that lists event if you just put in location and timing that you're going to be there. And you'll see tons of shakeouts happening. You'll also see tons of happy hours happening, hosted by brands or running groups or influencers, whatever it is you're looking for. You can probably find it there as well, including after parties, because who knows, maybe you finish that marathon and you still got some extra energy left. So I encourage you to look at Eventbrite, and I'll also put that link down in the description. All right, so now that we have concluded speaking about all the events around the New York City Marathon, let's talk about the New York City Marathon. A huge reminder, there is no bag check at the starting line. Unlike in other races, this time bag check will happen in Central Park at Rumsey Playfield in Central Park, and you can drop the bag containing everything that you're going to plan on needing after the marathon. You can drop that on November 1st and November 2nd between the hours of 8 and 5 p.m. So just remember that, because if you don't, then you're going to get to the starting line and you're going to realize that you're going to have to either leave stuff behind or else. And let's talk about the starting location and timing. The New York City Marathon takes place in Staten Island. When you signed up for the New York City Marathon, you had to submit a time or an estimated time that you'll take to run this race. And in accordance with that, you'll be placed in a certain wave. You should already by now have the information about what wave you'll be in. And that is important because each wave has a certain starting time. For example, if you are in the professional wheelchair division or in a disability division, or if you're an elite runner or a professional runner, then your starting time is between 8 a.m. and 9:05 a.m. After that, wave 1 starts at 9:10, wave 2 starts at 9:45, wave 3 starts at 10:20, wave 4 starts at 10:55, and wave 5 starts at 11:30. Knowing your wave is not just important because you want to know at what time your race actually starts, so you can tell your friends and spectators that you brought with you. It's also important to know your wave start, because that way you can figure out which transportation to rely on. You have options when it comes to transportation to the starting line in Staten Island, which include private transportation, which you yourself will arrange for, buses, as well as the ferry. If you take private transportation, just be advised that the Verrazano Bridge will close at 7 a.m. So if you don't make it there before that, then you don't really have a way of getting to the starting line. Now, when it comes to buses, there's 2 different pickup points. One of them is New Jersey. The other one is Midtown New York at the Public Library. But you can also take the ferry, which is at the Whitehall Terminal. I have one regret, that when I ran New York last year, I did not take the ferry, and that would have been super scenic, but I was nervous, right? I wanted to make it to the starting line. In retrospect, it would have just been fine with the ferry. Luckily, the New York Roadrunners have on their website a chart, which I'm going to display right here. And that chart tells you when you should be leaving. For example, if you are in wave 1, your wave starts at 9:10, and the suggested time for taking the ferry is between 5:30 and 6. And the suggested time for taking the bus options is between 5 and 5:30. For wave 2, the starting time is 9:45. The suggested time for the ferry is between 6 and 7 a.m. And the suggested time for the bus is between 5 and 5:30 a.m. and so on. Note that as we move up in wave numbers, the starting time obviously gets later and later, and that option is available for taking a ferry. For example, if you're in wave 5, you are able to take the ferry between 7:30 and 9 a.m. versus for the bus option, your latest bus to take is still the 6:15 a.m. bus. And that is because the Verrazano Bridge, as we mentioned before, closes at 7 a.m. All that said, each of these transportation manners are approximately a ride of 90 minutes for the ferry. You obviously have to get on the ferry and then take a bus to the starting line. But again, that might be very scenic options to do, especially if you're in one of the later waves. When you board the buses, you'll be allowed to bring your own food. So I encourage you to do that, even though there will be plenty of nutrition available at Athletes Village. At least I found that to be true last year. And then you'll arrive at Athletes Village. Athletes Village is huge, and there's 1,500 porta potties in Athletes Village. So rest assured, you'll have plenty of opportunities to go to the bathroom. Besides the porta potties in the village, you'll also find snacks available, and you'll find coffee donated by Dunkin Donuts, who also will have these hats, the pink and orange ones. If you're a runner, you know what I'm talking about. You know, the hats. Yes, this one. And the only hiccup with this hat is that if you want to keep it, you are in charge of bringing it to the finish line, because as we said, there is no check bags at the starting line. Everything has to have been checked the day before. The way that I brought this hat home was I would just put it between my bra straps in the back. I didn't even notice it was there. If you're a guy and you don't have bra straps, then you're SOL, and you're going to have to tuck it somewhere else, right? Tuck it in your shorts or whatever. If you're a guy and you don't have bra straps, SOL, I guess you're going to have to tuck it in your pants or whatever. You'll figure it out. But if you want that hat, you can get one at Dunkin Donuts. Now, as for your loved ones and all the people that are intending on spectating this race, let's talk about the best spectating locations. And if you're watching on TV, we're also going to talk about where you can watch this race on television. There are tickets available on Eventbrite for grandstands. Grandstands is an area that is approximately 500 meters before the finish line and to the finish line. Those tickets are available on Eventbrite for $59.53. Other standing spectator areas inside of Central Parks are from Columbus Circle to the south end of the grandstands that we just talked about. Also, there is spectating available from the Blue Line Lounge, hosted by TCS, which I still to this day can't figure out how to purchase tickets for. Or again, you can go to Eventbrite, the website, and find out if there are cheer zones hosted by any brands, by any restaurants, etc. Or you can just go do that on your own. Find a restaurant on the course that you want to chill at while you cheer on the runners. If you're planning on watching the race locally on television, you can do so on WABC Channel 7, where pre-race coverage will begin at 7 a.m. and the whole event will be on television till about 1 p.m. You can live stream the race on the ABC 7 app. And if you're not local, you can also watch the race on ESPN2, coverage starting at 8 a.m. If you're not local, then you can watch the race on ESPN2, where live coverage will be there from 8 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And if you want to watch coverage of the race in Espanol, you can do so on ESPN3 between the hours of 8 and 11:30 a.m. as well. So let's briefly touch on the marathon course a little bit, because we all know that this is not a flat course. There's quite a bit of elevation. The first 2 miles of the race will be the Verrazano Bridge, because you're going to be going up for about 1 mile, and 1 mile down you get about 150 feet in gain. From miles 3 to 13.5, it'll be a net zero. You're going to be in Brooklyn. The first part, which is miles 3 to 8, is through the commercial center, which is on a 4-lane road. Then at mile 8, you make a turn and get into the residential neighborhoods of Brooklyn's, where now you are on a 2-lane historic brownstone road. Miles 8 to 9 is uphill at Lafayette. And then you reach the Williamsburg section, which is flat. Again, we're still in Brooklyn at this point. Then in the last part of Brooklyn, you are going to be on the Pulaski Bridge, which marks the halfway point of this race. And you'll be on that bridge before you get into Queens at 13.5 miles. When you get into Queens, you will experience a lot of turns. And then you'll get to the bridge. The bridge will be at about mile 15 to 16, which is the second largest climb of this race. And then when you reach mile 16, you'll be getting into Manhattan. And that's where it happens. That's where you have that infamous downhill running into the Manhattan crowds that are 6 to 10 people deep, which is pretty amazing. Miles 16 to 20 is a straight shot on First Avenue. It's a little bit of rolling hills, but it's pretty calm. And then you get into Bronx via the US Avenue Bridge, which is only 50 feet long. You'll be in Bronx for less than a mile, and then you'll head back out using the Madison Bridge Avenue, which is a 20-foot gain. You'll be back into Manhattan at mile 21. Around mile 23, you'll be in Harlem, with another incline on Fifth Avenue, but this incline is only 80 feet and it's spread out over a mile, so you barely even notice it. That's going to be at streets 110 to about 90th. And by mile 24, you'll be by Central Park Drive, where you'll enter and then exit the park, and then you'll enter the park one more time for an awesome finish at the New York City Marathon. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this race. I will be there to spectate. I will also be at the Expo on Saturday at the podcast booth between the hours of 9 and 12 if you want to stop by and say hello. I'll be doing little interviews that I will later on put on YouTube. I'm super excited for you and all the spectators and people like me that are excited about watching this race. If you have run this race before and you have anything that you think I forgot or should have added to this video, please put it in the comments below for all the other viewers to see. So that way we can assure that we all have a great experience. And if this video is of any value to you, I ask that you consider subscribing. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I wish you the best race.